Hi, I am back. Welcome to Fly Like Me PhD with Dr. Maya. I have officially celebrated my birthday and made it to country 46. I am so honored and so happy for myself that I had this opportunity. And I wanted to come and tell you all about country scouting in La Paz, Bolivia. So that's where I was recently in August, and I have a lot of great information to give to you all. First, we're going to start off with the pros of country scouting in Bolivia. One thing that we immediately witnessed was the beauty of the place. I mean, you could just look off into the scenery and see all of the mountains. You could see all of the scenery. It was just really nice in some places in the world where you can just look outside your window and just have a captivating experience and not have to necessarily travel around in order to have that experience. Also, when we had to get our visa, in order to get your visa, you do have to pay a fee for the visa for Bolivia if you are coming from the United States. I'll get into that in a moment, but know that you do not have to use cash for your visa. So online, it says that when you're going to get a visa on arrival in Bolivia, it does say that you need to have cash, but they actually took card. So that was one thing that really alleviated a lot for us. Then they have something called telefericos, and those are cable cars that will take you from one area to another. There were multiple colors of these cable cars, including purple, including silver, including orange. They have some of the colors of their flag for the cable cars as well. And cable cars are just becoming a way of transporting people from one place to another that is really easy and convenient. So if you have the opportunity to take a cable car, you should definitely try that and see what it's like. Then, one of the most important pieces about traveling to Bolivia is that the indigenous community is retained. It's one of the few places that I have ever witnessed that colonization was not a key focal point of the place. You could find indigenous communities, you could see indigenous people everywhere, you could see their practices, you could hear them speaking their language, you could see them represented in billboards. It just was a very incredible experience to see that an indigenous community could still be retained and not completely taken over by colonization. So I 100% recommend, if you all are able, to take a trip to Bolivia so that you can see that there are some places that people are able to still lean into the practices and the culture that they have had this entire time before they were colonized. So that is very crucial to see if you are interested in history. That is a place that I would recommend that you go so that you could really observe that. And that being said, we did not see a lot of white people. So oftentimes when I go abroad or anywhere in the world, there are white people everywhere. But in this case, there wasn't. I think that they were like visiting or, climbing some mountain or checking out some terrain, but seeing them present everywhere was not really a thing. I saw them very rarely, which we appreciated. And again, that allows for indigenous culture to be retained when they're not necessarily taking over the space. Also, we did not feel that we were a threat when we were walking around as Black people, in that some places I have felt we were being stared at a lot and people are just not used to seeing Black people. But when we were in La Paz, Bolivia, it seemed like it didn't really matter that we were there. People were fine with us being there. We just were walking around and not having the experience of people staring at us all the time, no matter where we went. And that made us feel very comfortable and feel very safe and just able to just walk around and enjoy the experience without necessarily feeling like people are wondering why we're there or not even wanting us to be there, which can also be an experience that happens as a Black person with obvious anti-Blackness that is global. They also have a fair in El Alto, which is another city in Bolivia. This was a city that we did not spend a lot of time in, but they had mentioned that they have a really nice fair that goes on there. So if you're interested in checking out fairs, that might be a fun place for you to visit or for you to see. And they said that the fair occurs twice a week. So that is definitely a thing. They also have a bus line. So remember, we're talking about transportation. We like to talk on this channel about places that are walkable. So the bus line, it costs $3 for one line and typically costs $6 for two lines, but you can get it discounted and you can get it for $5 for two lines if you talk to them. This is one of the things that they advertise to us about taking the bus, is that it's pretty affordable and it allows you to get to and from places pretty well, as well as the cable car. That is another big piece of transportation for them. One thing that I found that was really cool is that you can also take the bus to neighboring countries. So, because Bolivia is surrounded by an array of countries, we're talking Argentina, we're talking Brazil, we're talking Chile, then you can actually travel between countries just on a bus ride. So, a lot of times we think specifically in the US, because a lot of states are not necessarily connected to other countries, we might have to fly to go to another country. But in Bolivia, you could have the experience of traveling to a completely different country by just taking the bus, which is really nice. And this happens when places are contiguous, where they are connected to one another, and it makes it really easy for you to go from one country to another instead of always having to take a plane, which could be way more expensive than just taking a bus trip. Then we were really enjoying the music in the restaurant. So if you like good music, it had a nice variety of music. It had music pretty much all over the world. It had music that is like cultural to Black culture. It had specifically Black American culture. It had music that was like in French. It had music in Portuguese. Obviously, it had music that is signature to their music. We were thinking that maybe it's sounded like flutes were being played in their music. And so when we went to the restaurants, you could hear like an array of music, and we really enjoyed that as well. It is going to be pretty affordable for folks from the US to be in Bolivia, because $1 is going to equal 7 Bolivianos. So Bolivianos are the currency in Bolivia, and $1 will equate to 7 of those. So things were pretty affordable when we were paying for things, getting food, walking around, transportation. So that's always a positive, is if you feel that you can, your money can go a long way in a country. We would definitely say that. I am a person that drinks a lot of water, so I always have to use the bathroom. So a positive for me was they had lots of public bathrooms. Everywhere we went, it's like public bathroom over here, public bathroom over there, public bathroom over here. So whenever we went somewhere, I was always paying attention to where the public bathroom is, just in case I had to use it. And I really enjoyed the fact that there were lots of public bathrooms all around. Also, the weather kind of changes a lot in Bolivia, so you don't have to feel like whatever the weather is at one moment when you're there is how the weather will be all of the time. Sometimes the weather was hot, sometimes it was a little chilly. It just depends on where you are. It depends on what the time of day is. So if you like hot weather, it's got that. If you like cold weather, it has that. And from walking so much, it will cause you to be hot in general. general. So definitely can see that. And then a final thing that I will mention as a pro for me was the ability to exercise without even trying. Like, there were lots of hills. It was very steep sometimes. So just walking around got that exercise that you needed without necessarily, for example, having to travel all the way to a gym. So those are the things that I would say were the positives of visiting Bolivia. And I would definitely recommend that people check those out because I had a really enjoyable experience there. And I think that if these are things that interest you, then you will enjoy them as well. So now I want to tell you all about some of the negatives or some of the cons that I saw when in Bolivia, specifically in the city of La Paz. So it is one of the highest cities in the world in terms of elevation. So the elevation was really, really intense, you all. For example, we were in a hotel, and when I just was walking up the flights of stairs, I completely lost my breath. We were on the fifth floor, so I was like, let me just run this to the room really quickly. And on the third floor, by the third flight, I could no longer breathe, and I had to stop and pause. So this was happening all of the time. Every time we walked around somewhere, every time there was a hill, didn't even have to be that high. Just the elevation made it very hard for us to breathe all of the time. So as a result of that elevation, some of us had nosebleeds very often. I had a headache every single day from the altitude. And then there also, like, we had a runny nose from this as well. And so there can be some consequences that happen as a result of that elevation. And one thing that has been told to us is that the Spanish had brought African people to Bolivia to enslave them, obviously, and to work. And due to the elevation, a lot of those people died. They did not survive. And so, saying that to say that could be a potential reason that Bolivia it has been able to retain its indigenous population is because a lot of people have died trying to colonize the space, and maybe they just left it to the indigenous people. So that being said, there also is some dry air that you need to be prepared for, and to avoid the altitude sickness. They did have a coca tea that we would drink every single day that kind of made us feel a lot better and made us handle the altitude a lot better. So there are solutions in terms of dealing with the altitude if that is an issue for you. I want to also say that they had mentioned to us that after living there for about 2 to 3 months, people are typically able to adjust to the altitude. So if you are interested in eventually living there or being a part of that community, then it might take you that type of time, but you can adjust to it and will adjust to it eventually. So now I want to go back to what I talked about, the visa. Another negative for me was that the visa cost $160, which is a lot. I typically pay for visas maybe $50, maybe $70 at most, but $160 was a little steep. But I will let you know that you pay for that visa and it's good for 10 years. A lot of visas do not last that long, but being able to do that, you definitely can get a very long visa. And know too that they do require you to show your bank statement in order to enter Bolivia. And this, they just took a screenshot of how much money we had in our bank account, and that will suffice. And if you're traveling with another person like I was, then it can just be the bank statement of one person because they count you two together. So that is another thing that you will have to be aware of. Back to the altitude, like I mentioned, you will have to constantly walk upstairs and hills and climb a lot throughout your trip to Bolivia. Even if you want like a low key trip, you're not trying to hike or do anything intense. It is just the way that the space is set up, is that there are a lot of climbing, there are a lot of hills, so you have to be prepared for that. And then it could be difficult to get into Bolivia. So what we had to do in terms of our flight was we went from Panama, then to Colombia, then to Peru, then to Bolivia. So like 4 different flights to get there. It was a whole day of travel. So they said that people typically will stop in Peru first to kind of adjust to the altitude and then go to Bolivia. And then once you get in Bolivia, they said take about 1 to 2 days to just rest and adjust to the altitude before you just jump into activities. That was not what we did. We went straight into the activities and we were very drained, very tired. And as I told you, just the elevation made it really hard for us to like breathe and like feel comfortable. They also have a different charging outlet. You can still charge your phone or devices using your US charger, no problem. But the only thing is that sometimes that might strip your charger. And so people recommend that you have an adapter if it is a different outlet. So just wanted to let you all know of that. Then just walking around, there's a lot of honking that goes on from the cars, so it can be a little noisy. There's a lot of smog, and you could smell a lot of gas from the cars and in the air. So if you have issues related to like breathing or need clean air, then that could be a little concerning here. From January to March, they said that every day it rains, and from June to August, it is the winter season. That typically makes sense because in the US, the time for us that is the winter season is the opposite in Latin America, and the time that is the summer season is the opposite in Latin America. Also, big thing I want you all to know about the food is they did not have a lot of vegan or vegetarian options. If you are vegan and vegetarian, it could be hard to find options for you. And then tourism is common in Bolivia, but as I mentioned, we did not see a lot of tourists. So if you're looking for like Black expat communities, they might not really exist, or there might not be a lot of Black expats there. We did learn that there was a Black Bolivian community, but we were not in the area where we could actually meet up with them. Another thing is it could be hard to cross the streets. There were not a lot of crosswalks. There were not a lot of like walking signs that let stop here, walk there. Not a thing. People just like racing by. And so if your safety obviously is a priority and you need something with crosswalks, this did not necessarily have that. And then finally, I would say make sure that you pack gloves because it can just be really chilly and them hands are going to be the first things to get cold. Make sure that you pack a coat because having a coat when it like goes to the chilly weather, then you'll have something. And remember, we were also there during the winter season, so it's a lot colder. And then moisturizer for your face and for your lips daily. I noticed just after one day, my lips were already cracking. They looked white, like face was cracking, needed lotion every single day. And this could be because of the weather and like drying out your skin. So you just want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. You are aware of what is happening in the space to figure out if this is a good space for you. I have not heard of a lot of Black people, like Black Americans specifically, that have decided to move to Bolivia. If you want to be one of those people, you definitely can. But this is the information that I have for you. And I could also see why a lot of Black people haven't moved there. I think that it could be hard to live there with the altitude issues, with constantly climbing stairs and hills, with your skin and lips being dry and needing to be moisturized constantly, and how chilly it could be is a lot. So for me, Bolivia is not necessarily a trip or is not necessarily a country on my radar for country scouting in terms of like somewhere that I would want to live for those reasons. But if you are interested in living there, you should definitely try it out. So that is the conclusion of this video. It's been really great to tell you all about my experience. I am so fortunate that I was able to see Country 46 and so thankful. What a wonderful, wonderful birthday present. So in the comment section, please tell me about your experience in Bolivia or if you're ever interested in traveling to Bolivia. And I hope that you all have a fantastic day, and I will see you the next time. Bye.